Alright, today we're going to be port matching the exhaust ports to the exhaust gasket here. Alright, the items that you're going to want to use for this, you're going to need some abrasive sanding rolls. You're going to want an air chuck. I prefer to use the one with the 4-inch shank. It helps get down into the runners. You're going to want a scribe here. This is so that you can mark your lines, your rings here on the head itself. Easiest thing to use to do that is this crayon here. Once it's all cleaned up with the razor blades, get all that old carbon off. We're going to put some wax on there, and we're going to use the scribe to etch the wax. Alright, and now after you get your wax crayon built up on there, that's when you go ahead and lay your gasket on. Alright, try and get it nice and lined up. Alright, then you're going to take your scribe, while holding your gasket, make sure it's centered. You're pretty much just going to run it around like this. Okay, keep the gasket steady, move to the next hole. Okay. Alright, hit pause. Alright, once you get your lines scribed into the wax, you're going to take a razor blade and not going forward, you're going to go backwards, squeegee the wax off. This helps distinguish that line that we put. It's a little bit more visible when you're working. Alright, now after you get the majority of your wax removed, alright, you see how it's a lot easier to differentiate where your lines are. What I like to do at this point is throw the gasket back on and re-scribe my lines. That way any wax down in the lines or anything just makes it real nice and easy to see. This is like your warning marker, so you know when you're taking off too much material. You can always take off more, but if you take off too much, you're going to need a new head. Alright, and now from this point, we're pretty much ready to start porting. And now what I like to do is, if you look right down in there, that little divider, I like to knife edge those. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to each cylinder and worry about just doing that knife edge first. That way we can try and keep them consistent throughout. Then we're going to go around and do the outside radius. Alright, and this is the first pass. This is just knife edging the dividers there. Alright, take it down to each one. Alright. Alright, and I'm sure you guys wanted to see some of this too. Now at this point, we're real close to the edge here. This is where we want to start taking our time. Alright, see how this side is already pretty much smooth? Alright, now take it this side. Look at this side. That ridge right there. We're going to be slowly shaping this down and rounding it in. We want to try and keep our walls linear so that there's no outward taper really until, so the runners just come straight out. Alright, and that about wraps it up with the carbides. Alright. This is just the first pass. We're still going to do plenty of work with sanding rolls and then sandpaper. So now we're going to go from this to this. before we get into the polishing, we're going to go down into these exhaust ports and clean up any rough casting from the valve side. We're going to focus on spots like that. Let's see if I can get this to focus good for you. There we go. Let's see, there's a couple other ones. That one's got a nice ugly cast mark in the edge. Alright, and that's where a lot of our power gains are going to be, increasing the flow on these ports. Alright, and we're going to use the heavy duty sand and roll with the low grit. And we're going to use duct tape here to cover up all our valve seats to keep those safe. Alright, and what I like to do at this point, once we're all taped up and ready to go, I like to just sand a little bit of the carbon out of there so we can see our casting imperfections a little better. Let's see if we can get that to zoom in there for you. There we go. See on the right side of there, and on the right side of there, down in here, it's a little easier to see it. Alright, and that's so that we can switch over to a carbide again for a minute. Pause it. Alright, and as you can tell, we've switched back to our carbide. We're going to want to go real slow and gentle with our sweeps to try and get rid of these casting imperfections down here. Alright, we don't want to gouge into this because we don't want to be removing too much. Alright, and now as you can tell, we've ground out those machining imperfections in the cast with the carbides. Alright, and now we're going to go in there and clean it up with the sanding rolls again. Alright, and as you can see down all of these, pretty uniform. Okay, don't really see any more of those side protrusions. I mean, very weak on some of them, but almost imperceivable. Alright. Trying to screw it on more. All right, that next port, since that one's got some deeper marks in there, we're going to switch over to the higher grit for that second one. All right, we went through all three grits with the sanding rolls, all the way up to the highest one that came in the package from Harbor Freight. All right, we are going to make a second pass. This first one was really just to clean it up and show us where it still needs work. All right, now if you look into this one, there's still some imperfections up here. We're going to try and get some of those out. And there's also a couple down here. This other side, there's just some on the outside of the throat. This one actually doesn't look too bad at all. We're going to clean up down there a little bit. This one looks pretty good. We're just going to clean up in here. Move the light down. This one's not too bad. However, it does look like we have a low spot right here in the throat. We're going to try and see if we can work that out a little bit. This side, not too bad. Not too bad. Oh, okay. See, this is why it's good to have these extra lights, because that inside looks like it could use some work. All right, and we're going to get to it. We're going to use the electric drill with the sanding rolls for this. And here we go. All right, now both sides of the port are done. This is the valve side, each one. Okay, and these have not been polished at all yet. This is just the port job. All right, and they look even prettier from this side. Okay. Now we're about ready to get the polishing wheels in there.